brief history of the National Air and Space Museum. The Smithsonian's connection to flight began with the birth of the institution, first headed by Joseph Henry, a physicist, balloon enthusiast, and skywatcher. In 1861, Henry made a pivotal contribution to American aviation when he invited Thaddeus Lowe to inflate his hot air balloon on the Smithsonian grounds. This demonstration eventually led to the birth of American aerial reconnaissance during the Civil War. The museum's collections were first housed in the Arts and Industries Building, then after World War I, expanded to a prefabricated metal building erected by the War Department behind the Smithsonian Castle. Affectionately known as the Tin Shed, the new building opened to the public in 1920 and would remain in use for the next 55 years. In 1946, President Harry Truman signed a bill establishing the Smithsonian's National Air Museum to memorialize the development of aviation, collect, preserve, and display aeronautical equipment, and provide educational material for the study of aviation. Well before spaceflight became a reality, the Smithsonian took a leading role in funding one of America's most important rocket leaders. In 1916, Robert Goddard wrote to Secretary Charles Greeley Abbott requesting a grant to support his research. The Smithsonian awarded him $5,000 to conduct his first practical experiments in rocketry, and eventually published his classic treatise, The Method of Reaching Extreme Altitudes. In 1966, President Lyndon Johnson signed a law that changed the name of the National Air Museum to the National Air and Space Museum to memorialize the development of both aviation and spaceflight. Funding to construct a new building was approved in 1971. The National Air and Space Museum being constructed in 1973. Wow. In 1975, the task of filling the building with air and spacecraft began, and July 1, 1976, President Gerald Ford presided over the ribbon-cutting ceremony at the opening of the new National Air and Space Museum building on the National Mall.
Welcome to a new episode of Let's Go See It, where my goal and desire is to inspire people to go out and see the world. Today, we're in Washington, D.C. at the Air and Space Museum. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to expect so that your visit there will be a total success. What you're looking at right now is the line to enter the Air and Space Museum. The people you see coming towards me are trying to get to the back of the line. This is one of the longest lines you will ever encounter in the United States. The line actually wraps all the way from the front of the museum, around the sides, all the way down the back of the museum, and then on the side of the museum, then across the street onto the National Mall. Just to give you an idea of people's commitment to see the exhibits in this museum, it just got done raining. It's in December, it is cold and it is wet, and they are still waiting in line. My first recommendation to you if you want to see and enjoy this museum is to get there early. The museum opens at 10 o'clock. Getting there by 9:30 will put you in the museum in about a half hour. If you're at the back of the line, it's about an hour and a half wait. One of the things I enjoy about this museum is that there's always something to see and do. There's eye candy everywhere. You are never bored. Many museums don't use space and ceilings to highlight the exhibits. However, the Air and Space Museum, just by its very nature, planes and other things, satellites are all on the ceiling, so you always have to be looking up. This museum is very popular. Inside of it is packed. There are people everywhere. So if you don't like being around people, this is not the right museum for you. Because there is so much to see and do in the Air and Space Museum, it is broken up into sections. This makes the material far more palatable. One of the things I like about this museum is that it doesn't just focus on American space aviation. There are many exhibits that have to do with the Russian space program, so it's an all-encompassing air and space, not just for the United States, but also world air and space accomplishments. The Air and Space Museum is free. However, there are folks who will give tours, paid tours, and tell you what the exhibits are all about. If you look carefully, though, you'll find individuals who will provide free tours. They are volunteers. They are standing around, usually in a suit and a name tag, and if you ask them about the exhibit they're standing close to, they will give you the entire history behind it. Here's what a free tour sounds like.
Within this year or within a year or two. But one thing that will not, that is unlikely to be certain.
In my opinion, the quality of the information you receive is the same. The difference is in the price and convenience.